Before we get started with what do we do against the Queen's Gambit, what do we do against the Nimzo, and so on and so forth, I wanted to do this in-between video to give you some idea of why I did this series and what this series is really about. When I started chess, for some reason most kids start with the move e4. I've always been a d4 player. And I found success with d4, and to this day I've never become an e4 player, but instead I've spent all my life in the d4 universe. Now, starting out, what you normally do is you do exactly what I just mentioned. You start running into the major openings and you start looking for lines that will give you an advantage against those, which is fair enough and a very valid approach. I've been doing this to pretty unhealthy extents in many openings as well. But at some point you start running into a point where you say, I just can't go pretty much anything. I can't play the Nimzo-Indian with 4 queen c2 in every single white game. My opponents are too well prepared for it. They expect me to do it, and I'm not getting anywhere. In general, the problem for white openings, in my opinion, is that it's very hard to have one fixed repertoire nowadays, because it's easier to prepare with black. And that's also why in this series I'm not really gonna promise you an opening advantage against any line. All the major openings are major openings for a reason. They're employed by the world's best players constantly. And if it was easy to find an advantage against them, or even possible, then everybody would go there and it would have been found. But modern chess openings is not really what this is about. Especially with white, there is very few people nowadays who just go d4 and for the same line every game and find success with it. Instead, the trend, spearheaded by the current world champion Magnus Carlsen, but a lot of others have been following his trade, is to become more flexible and look for weaknesses in your opponent. So in order to find success, especially as a d4 player, it helps a lot not to be completely predictable, but to move around a bit. That doesn't mean that you can't play the main lines and that you shouldn't go for a line you're comfortable with, but it means that very often it helps taking your opponent and his tendencies into account. From a lot of club players I hear, yeah, I understand that what I do, the collar system with 3 bishop f4 or 3 e3 or whatever fixed solution they try to play is not the best of openings, but I just don't have the time to play series openings and my opponents will always be better prepared in them. Even if that is true, I believe you do yourself a favor if then you counter not by playing the same set of slightly less strong opening every game, but just try to be flexible and vary a bit. And this is what this series is really about. It's at its heart a 1d4 series, but in order to be flexible, not only will we look at move order tricks and setups within 1d4, but we will also very often consult 2 moves which nowadays form a part of many 1d4 players' lives, which are the moves 1 knight f3 and the move 1 c4. If you check out my practice, for example, you will see that I vary between 1 d4 and 1 knight f3 pretty frequently. I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say it's around 40% d4 and 40% 1 knight f3, while 20% I will go for 1 c4. And this varying is normally for a reason. It's not only to be unpredictable, but also because I do prepare for my games and I try to choose whatever makes my opponents most uncomfortable. So that's what this show is really about. I think it can be watched in 2 ways. It can be watched as, oh my god, I'm playing against this opponent who plays the Nimzo and I don't know what to do. Then you can check out the video, and while it probably won't give you the refutation of the Nimzo-Indian, it will give you the options you have, or the options which I consider promising, to either battle him in his territory or get him out of there completely. To give you an example, we were just speaking of the Nimzo. You say, I have nothing against the Nimzo-Indian. Then one choice you would have, the Nimzo-Indian, for those who don't know, is the line bishop b4 here. Well, you say you don't have anything, which is fair enough. I feel like that many times too. The world doesn't end there. You have choices. You can go for the move 3 knight f3 and see what your opponent does against that. Many will say, but then he goes for the Queen's Indian, and I also don't have anything against that, which is fair enough. I don't really either. Then you might reach a point where you say, okay, let's see how else we can get him out of his systems. And here, for example, let's say your opponent is that Nimzo Queen's Indian guy. What about knight f3, knight f6, and c4? He would play e6, trying to get back to his territory, and we would go knight c3 or g3, when all of a sudden he's the one facing slightly unfamiliar territory. Maybe he goes for bishop b4, which is similar to the Nimzo-Indian, but all of a sudden we have some extra options which we wouldn't have in the Nimzo. We can go queen c2 here, we can go g4 here if we're more adventurously minded, and we have decent options to fight for an opening advantage here. So again, I'm not saying do this or do that every game, I'm saying consider your options. And I believe this is a very important aspect of chess nowadays, especially with the white pieces. I'm less opposed of having a fixed repertoire against, let's say, 1 e4. If you want to play the knight of every game, or you want to play the Berlin every game, that's fine. And if you're a specialist there, you probably won't get hurt very much. But with white, it does pay off to move around a bit and be aware of your opponent's tendencies. So if you say, yeah, you're a professional, but I just want to get an overview about what is an Nimzo-Indian and what lines are there, I think you can also use this series, because in every video I do give the main options and my brief opinion about them before moving on to what are the move orders and what else is out there. So I hope this series will be useful for you. Like I said, your work won't be done here. After watching one of these videos, you won't have a ready-made repertoire against pretty much anything, but it will give you food for thought what to look for in order to build that repertoire, or I don't really like the word repertoire because that's exactly what I don't want, or what to choose for that particular game. This series is meant to give you an overview over all those things. Later we will also come back to more traditional repertoire series to complement it. Like, let's say our opponent is a Grunfeld player, we have nothing against the Grunfeld. We can do a series about beating the Grunfeld with 1 knight f3 and playing queen b3 in the anti-Grunfeld. But in order for us to even have that opportunity, it does make a lot of sense to first of all familiarize ourselves with the options out there, and being able to go 1 knight f3 if we think that's a good thing against a Grunfeld player. So I hope this introduction has not scared you away from the series yet, and I hope you're gonna learn at least something about 1 d4, 1 knight f3, 1 c4, and ways to use them to make your opponents uncomfortable, get them out of book, or get an opening advantage in an area where you feel like we can catch them. Thanks a lot and have fun with the series. Bye.
This is Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for onlinechesslessons.net. First of all, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to receive more free chess videos from us, you can just click the subscribe button below. I would also highly recommend signing up for my free mail course, the 10 Grandmaster Secrets to Dominate Chess. During this exclusive course from onlinechesslessons.net, I'll share with you my own Grandmaster shortcuts to effective attacking, defending, and growth hacks to improving your chess without complicated books or memorization. So sign up by clicking the sidebar on the right, and I know you won't be disappointed. Once more, this is Damien for onlinechesslessons.net, and I'll see you in my videos. Thank you.